Are you thinking about making a podcast? Spotify has a platform that lets you make one, and if I can figure it out, you definitely can too. You can create your own content all in one place for free with zero hangups and even earn money as soon as you get started. Spotify lets you record and edit episodes from your phone or computer so you can go mobile, just like I enjoy to do. My favorite thing about it is that you can create video episodes if you wish and upload them to wherever podcasts are heard. You can even set up subscriptions, or if you're like me, listener support options for listeners to help you grow. I 10 out of 10 recommend the Spotify for Podcasters app. Or, why don't you just step over to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started on your own podcast. If you like what we do here at Off the Deep End and wish to support us, the best thing you can do is to share it on your social media, but also you can tell your mother, sister, cousin, auntie, the kid that's walking by you down the street, your gym crush, anybody about the episode you're listening to and why you liked it. There's also another way to support us, and it's to go to the link posted in the description and on our Facebook page. And when you become a subscriber, you'll have access to subscriber-only content and ad-free listening for every single episode we put out. No matter what you choose to do, I do greatly appreciate you for tapping in, and please do reach out to our Facebook page so we can chat. Tell us what you feel, what you think, what you don't like, what I could improve upon. At the end of the day, this is meant to be a conversation starter. And just to be completely open and honest, every single penny that goes to the Off the Deep End program with subscribers is going to help other people by spreading the word via ads or getting new microphones so we can have more people at a time. And I really do appreciate every single listener. So thank you so much. I hope you have a great day and don't pass the pain. All right. Thank you for joining me today, man.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So why don't you start with telling us a little bit about your background?
Sure. Well, my name is Kyle McCutcheon. I go by Clutch, and I've been a martial artist my whole life. I started out with, I was an 80s kid, so it was all about karate growing up, and I competed a little bit in karate. Always had a passion for martial arts. Grew up doing some scholastic sports, but never really left the martial arts world. I just, kind of a cliche story, but when the UFC came out, it was mind blowing for a martial artist in that time of seeing, what we all thought was fighting was wrong. And so kind of became obsessed with the idea of jiu-jitsu, though I did not have a place to train at the time. And I think I was like 16, 17 years old when that came out. And but I'd screw around with friends and stuff, and we'd get all the UFCs on VHS and try and match the moves and stuff. But it wasn't until I joined the Marine Corps, and then I think in 1999 I actually started. I kind of credit that as my start to actual formal jiu-jitsu training, Fabio Santos School in Mira Mesa, California. But limited there. I would only go there on the weekends because I was living in Arizona and have to commute out there. I had a girlfriend that lived out there at the time, and kind of where I got my intro to jiu-jitsu. I would say that I was still really novice after I left there, and wasn't really seriously training till moving back to Washington State in late 2001. I began training mixed martial arts at a school that's well known around here. Charlie Pearson School is now known as C3. So I real first MMA experience was out of that. Had a couple of amateur fights, not the results that I really wanted. But for me, I was never about, becoming a big fighter or anything. I did it because I had fun doing it. Soon after that, I was hired by a local, one of the bigger local police departments, and went away to the police academy, and been in that career now for 20 years, involved in training, and exclusively that's all I do now is training law enforcement. I run my own jiu-jitsu academy, which we're in right now in Edmonds, Washington, called Kindred Jiu-Jitsu, and the owner and head instructor here. And I think we have roughly somewhere around 200 students. So I do that. I train police officers as a profession, and I do some side work with a couple of different companies, and I think that's where you and I cross paths at a training course that sheepdog response puts on. So,
Mhm.
I mean, in a nutshell, that's kind of it. I stay very busy. I will say that, and I'm also a father and balance a lot of things. So
Definitely a lot going
yeah,
on there.
yeah.
So, training jujitsu is one of the most healthy things that I've ever heard of. Joe Rogan talks about it. A lot of different fighters talk about it. Obviously, it doesn't look like you've been doing this for 20 years at all. So, you definitely kept your health in great shape. What is if I came to you today, right? So
Mhm.
let's say I'm sitting down with you, asking questions. What is like the first thing I need to do to get started on a self defense journey involving or surrounding jujitsu?
I mean, if I think that's a good choice, if we're talking exclusively for self protection, as far as any sort of unarmed combat, I don't think you can go wrong with jujitsu. I think it's pretty all encompassing. So if you were going to pick one individual martial art to satisfy, the most of your self protection needs, then jujitsu is definitely probably the choice I would make. I would, recommend supplementing with other things that is kind of lacking in jujitsu, but for the most part, you're going to get everything you need there. As far as like starting out, it's just one of the things that you just got to do it. I don't know. There's no easy way, and that's what people need to understand. Is I know that the popularity is higher than ever and continues to just keep rising because of some of the sources you've mentioned. Is everybody's kind of preaching it, and so you're getting more and more interest in it. But what I guess what people understand is that there is no shortcuts, and when you start, it's going to be hard. It's something that is extremely dynamic, and there's really no end to the learning process. I mean, here I told you I started in 1999, and here we are. It's coming up on 2023. I've been in the game a long time. I've been a black belt since early in 2015, and I learn stuff new every day from new sources. And you never feel like it's enough. That's one of the things. And so starting the journey, you just have to kind of accept that it's going to be a difficult journey to get on it. It's very enjoyable. You're going to find lots of things that are great experiences along the way, but you need to also prepare for the fact that you're going to be frustrated, especially in the beginning. You're not going to know anything. Even coming in, most people think, okay, but I played sports or whatever, and that's that. I'm going to be able to like do a little bit. It's like no, for them, unless you have some sort of martial arts background or a grappling background, coming into something that is a dynamic as jujitsu, and you come in, you're going to be suffering from that you don't know as much as you think you do. And when you come in and you start playing, it's quickly realized like, okay, I actually don't know anything. And then accept the process, right? Accept those moments where you're gonna hit walls, and it's gonna happen a lot in the beginning, and you're going to be frustrated, and you just need to manage that best you can, and just understand that there is going to be a light at the end of the tunnel at some point where things start clicking, and you got to stick with it. I mean, that's the biggest thing. And jujitsu is really good at this, of reminding you how to deal with adversity, because it never stops. Even though I'm at a place where I I wouldn't say I've mastered it, but I can I have more skills than most people that I end up training with for the most part, but I'll still run into the people that just steamroll me. And then, those are the moments I get checked. Jujitsu has a way of doing that. So unless you're Gordon Ryan, everybody has their days where they get checked. Jujitsu has a way of keeping that balance. So I would say starting out, that's probably the biggest piece of knowledge that I would say is like, have the expectation that it's going to be one of the biggest challenges that you're going to face, but it is very enjoyable. You've got to be able to roll with it. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, that is a very in depth breakdown. Thank you very much. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear.
Uh-huh.
I've ran into a lot of different things during my self defense journey, whether it was unarmed combatives. I started as a child, wanted to get into martial arts, so I tried karate as well.
Yeah.
Didn't get very far with that. My parents moved me to Taekwondo because they thought it would more practical, more safe,
Okay.
more non. They don't want me sparring pretty much because I kept kicking kids really hard in the ribs, and I got in trouble a bunch with my with Master Pierce over there on Highway
Oh, I
on 44th and
remember.
Linwood.
Yeah.
So I got in a lot of trouble
Is that
there.
still there?
I don't think so, sadly.
Okay.
But there is an Aikido place right down the road that my buddy trained with, and
All
I
right.
have a lot of friends that might even know you from Charlie's Combat.
Okay.
I have a buddy who was fighting out of there right when Miranda Danger was at the peak of her career before the baby. So a couple of my friends in the elevator industry also go there.
Yeah, I should qualify. I don't think I've set foot in Charlie's in many years, and it was probably, well, at least one location ago. I would not consider myself a student of Charlie's since probably around 2005, 2006. So there's been many generation of fighters that have come and gone since then. So I may know them, but chances are I probably don't.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think, obviously this is a Muay Thai studio as well. What pairs the best with Jiu-Jitsu? If so you have the grappling, the self-defense side. What about the striking or the offensive side?
Yeah, and that's it's you'll see that commonly where you pair Muay Thai with Jiu-Jitsu, and that's just because the main focus of Muay Thai, it tends to fill a lot of gaps as far as a self-defense, self-protection martial art. They pair well because Jiu-Jitsu gives you a lot of the ground fighting, and Muay Thai is very dynamic in the stand-up as far as is when you look at combat sports and you look at rule sets, one that is strictly a stand-up combat sport, there isn't many, at least not that I'm aware of, that encompass everything that is included in Muay Thai, as far as knees, elbows, clinch work, takedowns, all exist within the sport of Muay Thai. And it's when you have to include like sport with it, because my belief is, you have to be able to train this stuff as close to real world as possible. So if you don't have a competition aspect to it, I don't believe that you're getting the pressure testing necessary to validate your skill sets. And I think that's true of Jiu-Jitsu. It's one of the safest to practice that's closest to the real fight, right? You're getting a good balance there, where you're right on the cusp of what especially in competitive Jiu-Jitsu, where it's as close as you can get, without, obviously mixed martial arts is probably the closest, but as far as two individual martial arts that are not blended, that Muay Thai answers a lot of the questions that Jiu-Jitsu can't answer when you talk about self-protection in the street. So that's why we pair it here. I would also say that our style of Jiu-Jitsu here is there's a lot of wrestling in it as well, and maybe even a splash of judo. I'm not sure how all other schools do it, but in my experience, there's some that kind of gloss over that aspect. Well, here we have our students doing takedowns. We have a specific wrestling class weekly that's taught by a high level wrestler, because that can also be lacking in jiu-jitsu. The takedown aspects sometimes, given where you're practicing, may not be emphasized, but for us here, I think that's a big part of it, that we make sure that our students are at least competent in that. They don't need to be wrestlers, but they should at least have a takedown game or takedown defense game. So we include that as well. But that's where you're going to see that pairing a lot, jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai.
Yeah, I think that there's nothing more important than being a well-rounded person when it comes to not just self-defense, but also all aspects of life. Certain things pair together well.
Yeah.
It's not just Jack and Coke that
No.
smooth, or tequila on the rocks that goes well together. So I know that you're really big on this as well. So law enforcement officers training in jiu-jitsu, not just for the side control aspects or operating in clinch, working against walls, but also weapon retention and stuff like that. More and more, I'm seeing officers around the area, even in Seattle Police Department, getting into jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai. Some doing Krav Maga. I don't not necessarily know why, but Everyone's getting into different practices of martial arts. Why is that such a critical factor for when you're dealing in high stress environments like being on patrol?
Well, I mean, you've got the skill based side of things, right? Where uh, when again going back to if you're talking about one individual martial art, and if I were to pick one that would be most applicable for law enforcement, again, it would be jujitsu because it can be practiced safely, and it's all about basically controlling your opponent. And when you look at the work of a police officer, and you just break down when you get to the required skills where they're most necessary, right? And you get into basically situations where the stakes are the highest are these where we're trying to take custody of people, right? And that's where things have the best chance to go wrong. And if you are lacking skills in how to control a person, then what are you even doing? That's the thing that makes a job as a police officer pretty unique. There's not many other jobs out there where one of the requirements is you will have to seize people. And it's not an if, it's you will. Like that's the expectation. The public expects that if there's someone doing harm to others or to their property and the police are called there, they're brought to deal with that problem, and therefore you're going to seize people. Now when if that is known, and there's any number of times that might happen, there's always going to be a percentage of those people that resist arrest or even turn into turn assaultive. So as a police officer, that's a required skill set, and you don't always know when you're going to need it. But we do know that at some point you will have to control somebody that does not want to be controlled, and so you need to have a superior skill set to those individuals. Jiu-jitsu, as like I said, a lone martial art, probably provides the most of those required skills. I would just add, some wrestling or judo-based takedowns as well. But that's where you see across this nation where the biggest struggle is, and you can pinpoint it. And even many of these high-profile incidents where we lack the ability to, one, take the subject to the ground, and then two, control them once we've gotten there, and then get them to a position to where we can arrest them. So why you're seeing that is if it's not out of the officer just being aware of this, then it's out of the demand. The public expects a police officer to perform better. I don't think previous to it's really gained momentum in the past couple of years with many of these high profile incidents where I think it's become more public knowledge about police training practices or lack thereof, really, and where police officers continue to perform below a public expectation. And so now there's the demand that they perform better. And it hasn't quite hit to where the departments are feeling the heat. They are a little bit, and so they are pushing for better training, but not as much as I think you're seeing the individual police officer recognizing the discrepancy and taking it on their own accord to get skills. So that's why I think you're seeing a big rise in police officers joining jiu-jitsu schools and seeking the skills because they're recognizing this is just there. It's self-preservation, if nothing else. You get into these incidents and things go sideways, even if you're performing at the best of your capabilities. If you don't have skills, they don't suddenly come to you in the moment. You're exposed, and you're seeing these things break out where they hit their threshold and they have nothing left but to go to higher levels of force, including deadly force. So
Absolutely, and we see it.
yeah.
Anybody can go on YouTube any day and go look at police activity. It's actually a daily routine in my house.
Yeah.
Because my wife's little brother, he's 11. He wants to be a SWAT officer so bad.
Okay.
All he wants to do is all the sexy stuff, and I tell him, "Hey, brother, you have to understand good shoots versus bad shoots. You have to understand what it's like to work under pressure." So I put him through these stress inoculation tests regularly. doing exercises. You want to play with Nerf guns? Okay, we'll play with Nerf guns instead of the cups. And then I give him scenarios, and he has to try to work his way through it. And I'm not a master of technology or in self-defense tactics whatsoever, but I can start that idea of being under pressure, under stress. When he's working with me in the yard or chopping wood with a wood splitter, everything he does, we work at a fast pace and try to really get him and put him in. I put him in weird spots where he's uncomfortable. Exercises. He's squatting already. He's 11 years old and he's doing exercises past the point of exhaustion where he's really feeling the pressure. And as it builds up, he learns how to think clearly, how to listen to instruction under extreme, when your body's saying, why are we doing this? It doesn't make sense. That those hard things that we don't want to do are so important for molding people.
And I think that's also where, as we kind of talked about with jiu-jitsu training and facing adversity, you look at it for a police officer when they start, getting into jiu-jitsu and start their jiu-jitsu journey, that's the other benefits besides the actual physical skills they're getting. It's just like you were talking about, that ability to start processing under stress, and you're constantly conditioning yourself to do that, which is what we want out of a police officer. You want them to be able to remain calm even when the situation's chaotic. If they're put in a bad spot or an uncomfortable spot or a spot that may be scary, we still want them to be able to continue to process and think and problem solve. And really those are the intangibles that you get training, on the mats, because you're constantly doing that under pressure, and with it being a safe situation where when you get to that point where you have no answers, right? You're caught and you risk breaking your arm or getting strangled, then you just tap out and you reset, you get to do it again, and so that's why I think it's another reason why it's super beneficial for a police officer to partake in such training. And I can't speak to other arts the same way. I think that's where jiu-jitsu is pretty unique. We're not getting black eyes and cut up and everything. And like the striking arts, I think they do offer some of that, but there's a limited transference to police work with that stuff. If you find yourself clinching up a subject you're trying to arrest and delivering knee and elbow strikes, that's even if you could articulate the reasons why you're applying force like in that manner, it's a tough sell to the public. The optics of a police officer battering somebody into submission is just never going to look good. Mm-hmm. But you take somebody to the ground, you establish control, you remain calm, you're controlling the individual on the ground, no strikes, and you roll them over and put them in handcuffs, and everybody seems to be okay with that. So just another reason.
Kind of choose one of those choose your fate situations. You can train and remain the same, which is utter insanity to me. We can all improve in life. I've been injured for the past 4 months with 2 tears in my shoulder, but that's not going to stop me from doing everything I can to be able to join not just this gym, but I started with just slightly putting less than 5 pounds in my arm and trying to hold it for 3 seconds without crying. And then I slowly worked towards me being able to do push-ups and things like that. So learning how to work through issues, combat stress, deal with stress regularly, and remaining calm are super important. The last thing you want to do is be in a bad spot, especially as a Leo. We've seen it. People they freak out. They hit their level of training, and you don't rise to the occasion. You follow the level of training every time, and then next thing you know, it's really too late when that fog of war is there, and you're being investigated for an officer-involved shooting, and there's bullet holes in somebody's child, and they're all over the news saying that you're a demon.
Unacceptable. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the front desk lady at my doctor's appointments goes to Kindred. Eddie Warren, he was over at Gracie Jiu-Jitsu as an instructor for a little bit. He directed me to you over here, and then I run into you at Sheepdog, and they're directing me, and everybody in this region keeps directing me to this place. So I think this is kind of where I'm gonna end up having a little home with jiu-jitsu. And I know I'm gonna tap a lot. I'm probably gonna get choked out a few times because I can get stubborn and not listen. What?
Just protect that shoulder.
Oh, just protect that shoulder. Yeah, that's the goal. Well, the doc said no surgery, and I've done the work to heal up. So I'm hopefully within the next couple of months I can head in here. What is the reason? Why is the reason? What's all the talk about? Everybody's talking about this place. Every single cop I run into, I ask them if they're doing jiu-jitsu or some form of striking or if they're just doing deep breathing exercises, and they all come here for some reason.
Well, I don't know that I have all the answers to that. I can
Mhm.
just kind of tell you, well, one, I mean, we're well established. We've been here for over 10 years. So we were the first school in this area, you know, which is like South Snow County. You know, there's schools that are close by that have been around for longer, but for this area, you know, Edmonds, Linwood, Mount Lake Terrace, you know, I guess there's been one that's come and gone in that same area, but we've been established for a while, and I think that whatever took place, you know, I think, you know, maybe it has to do with just the way that I like to do things, or something, but we've just got a very cool vibe here. Of all the places I know of, we've been relatively drama free, scandal free. You know, we've got programs that bring in just all kinds of people. And then, you know, that's one of the beauties of jujitsu or martial arts in general, is you're bringing people from all walks of life together for a common reason, you know, and it introduces people that would probably otherwise not meet. And I think we've just had a way of cultivating a certain vibe here that's just festered. And when people come, they experience it. And, you know, of course, I think you got to have a viable program as well, you know, which I feel like we do. I try and hit as many check boxes as we can, as far as, you know, we're not exclusively a competition school, but we have people to compete. You know, I wouldn't say that we're even a self-defense school, but we have a nod that goes to that. You know, like I said, we incorporate wrestling. We've got the Muay Thai program. We do both. We're about 50-50 between gi and no gi. There's not many schools that do that. You usually have a predominantly gi school or a predominantly no gi school. Either I think we're one of the few around here that, well, like I said, we're about a 50-50 split. And we get junkies on both sides. So we got people that only come for the no gi. We got people that will only do gi. But we try and have you know, set it up to where, you know, there's something for everybody. That, and again, I think that we've got a vibe that, you know, keeps people coming. And if it's not just for the martial art, it's for the camaraderie that comes for it. We do things together. We hold events here. We just did a thing in the park, and probably every student in the school showed up there. At one point, there was definitely over 100, if not, you know, closer to 200 people in the park for a little get together. We brought some mats out there and barbecued all day, and you know, it was a pretty big deal for us. And we do things like that. You know, we get together, and we'll put up. We got a big you know, projector screen that we do, and we'll have, you know, we'll host different events. We got one of our competitors competing on the next EBI here at the end of the month, so we're having a little get together because she'll be down in El Paso, but we're gonna have a viewing here, and so gather a bunch of people, you know, a little potluck and hang out. And, you know, I think that's just the vibe that we've always had. That, and, you know, it just, as far as the police officer thing, well, you know, I think I have a pretty big role in that one. They come here because I'm known in that community as a trainer, and they want the training. I contract with a couple different police departments that all come here for their training. And that's outside of even just the you know, the ones that are registered students. So we have some of that too. Um, so I think there's that. My influence on that community will drive those types of people here, which, you know, is an amazing thing, which, you know, we need more of. So I think having a place that they know that they can come to and not be judged, which can happen. One of the weirdest reviews I've seen is on our Google account, where somebody said they're not going to come here because they see police officers training here.
I saw that and I was disgusted.
That was a little strange. And I did a little bit of research into that, and I can't find where that person's actually ever come to a class here. So this just must be, they were driving by, and I don't really know how they have that knowledge, but they don't even make any claims to having trained here, and nor can I find any record that they ever did. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But I can't imagine like avoiding a place just because of, you know, a certain profession participates there. So I don't know. That's a little strange to me.
It's definitely a little on the suspect side of the literally suspect side.
Like, you gotta wonder.
Some outstanding warrants, relax. Oh my goodness. What a mess. Well, I think I'm definitely going to be signing up here in the future. I was talking with my wife and my wife's little brother about it, and he wants to sign up here too. He's like, "You mean to tell me there's cops there too?"
Yeah.
And so he's so excited.
Nice.
It's overwhelming, and hopefully I can get a whole lot of his friends to come do it as well because from what I've seen, it's such a powerful thing in people's life. I have a friend who beats addiction by training. When I was in the sport of bodybuilding for a couple of years, as I was going up my 70 pounds of muscle I put on, I found that working through the hardest times, it really changes who you are and makes you a better person. And I think that jiu-jitsu has that same, that's one similarity between putting muscle on the body repetitively, dieting for years on end without ever cheating. And all these things directly go and tie into the work that you need to put in to be good at anything. So jiu-jitsu is definitely something that's on my radar.
Just to speak to that, the addiction versus jujitsu, like that's pretty common. You hear that a lot, and it's like that personality tends to like need something to fill that gap, right? And this kind of becomes the addiction. I've seen it many times, where that is the one thing keeping them, straight and off the drugs, and it's a cool thing, and I totally get it. If I had an addiction, it is jujitsu. I mean, I've continued to train through injury. Like you're talking about your shoulder. Well, I've got disc replacements in my neck. I've had 2 surgeries on my low back. I've got knee problems. I've fought through shoulder problems. I've torn both AC ligaments in my shoulders, and a lot of other little naggy things, but it's just like, I can't even imagine stopping. And I get so frustrated when I'm sitting on the sideline. So I totally get that. And that's not an uncommon thing. This becomes kind of the healthy addiction. Well, healthy, I say, when I just talked about all my injuries. But
life brings injuries to everybody.
It does. Yeah,
absolutely. So I've heard a statement, and I think that it shows true every single time when I'm speaking to my buddies from the military, especially the ones down in Florida, that jiu-jitsu is for everybody. You'll see, I'll see every now and then I see a post from my buddy down in Florida. I'm not going to name him on this because it's going to embarrass him. He keeps going on there. Last week I got choked out by a nerd, or last week I got choked out. Today I got choked out by someone who is 60 years old. Today I got slammed on my face by a lady half my size. This is something that has to do with a very, very diverse group that ultimately, like you said, becomes a family. So why don't you tell me about who is jiu-jitsu for everyone, in your opinion?
First of all, I'll say this. Jiu-jitsu is not for everybody. I like to say jiu-jitsu can be for everybody. It is possible that anybody can come in and practice jiu-jitsu. And I do believe. The problem becomes that you can just see the ones that just they're not into it. There's just some, I've learned this in my time in running a school where there's just people that don't even know what they're getting into. And as soon as they get just a taste of what's going on, they're gone and they're never coming back. And that is unavoidable. Unfortunately, I do believe it can be for everybody, but you're just going to have a certain types of people are going to come in and the experience is not what they expected. And they're done. That doesn't, but I've seen everything. I mean, we've had people that have started here in their 60s. We've had people from every walk of life. We have kids that started with us when they were, 5 years old, and now they're, looking at getting their blue belt. I've seen it all. I've seen every walk of life comes here. We've got, people in the marijuana industry. We have people in law enforcement. We have people that, are from, the graphic designers and everything else. And so it's not anything to do with any particular class. There's people that have a lot of money here. There's people that still live with their parents that are here. It's everything. So like I said, it can be for everybody. But unfortunately it just is not. Like there's just some people that are, it just does not click with. And I've seen that. And there's, just too much to overcome for them, I think, as far as it's such a shock. And maybe it's just not for them in that moment. Maybe they weren't ready to experience it. I can't say. Maybe it's something that we're doing here. I would, hate to think that, but I don't believe that, but maybe that's possible. Maybe in some other setting, it would be more tangible for them. But who knows? But in my experience, I would say jiu-jitsu can be for everybody, but yet it has proven that it's actually not for everybody. So
You have to show up and actually want to be put through the paces.
Yeah.
I don't like getting choked out,
Yeah.
but I've probably been choked out like 300 times in my life, just screwing around with people on the ship during deployment. It was 160 degrees outside, so we don't want to be out there.
Yeah.
It's 60 degrees inside. Might as well fight. I don't know whose idea it was, but
But I think like we talked about, just the adversity you're going to face, especially starting out, and some people just cannot handle it, for whatever reason. Even if you bring them along slowly, they just, it doesn't click. So at any rate, luckily, my experience has shown that the more people that come in really enjoy it and stick around. So,
okay. Sweet. So we just talked about what caused people to quit. What is the ultimate driving factor that you see that causes people to stay? Other than, I'm not talking about just here. I'm talking about for your whole experience in jiu-jitsu.
I think no matter where you go, I think there's just varying degrees of it, but always just by the nature of the art itself, you're going to develop camaraderie with the people you're training with, right? I mean, you're sweating, you're bleeding with these same people on the mats, and there's that. I know that develops a very strong bond, and that's really, we hear it a lot here, and I've heard it in other places where just that alone is what some people are seeking. The physical side of jiu-jitsu is actually like secondary to them. They want the camaraderie, they want to feel like they belong to something, and they get that, right? So that is a strong tie that keeps people coming. But there's also, just like I said, you have the healthy lifestyle that comes with it because you're doing something physical. But ultimately, I think it's the challenge that never ends. It's just, there's so much to learn, and you're never going to learn it all, and I can attest to that. It's like, I've learned so much that I forgot things and had to relearn it, and it just never stops. There's new rabbit holes to go down and challenge yourself. And there's always something new to play with. It never gets old. I know for some people it does, and there's reasons why that happens, but it's completely avoidable, with the right guidance. But I think those two things probably the stand above the rest is the camaraderie you develop with the people you're training with, and the fact that jiu-jitsu itself is just a never-ending journey that's always going to have a challenge involved. The comparison to like human chess is real, and if you can get into that, because there's all kinds of strategies, and the more you learn, like the better understanding of that you have, then the greater you see that, and that's when it really gets cool, and I would say after a couple years in, you really start to experience that side of it. Because at first everything's just new and overwhelming, and you're just trying to survive, right? But after you kind of get, a little bit of your game together, and you can, compete, not necessarily like in competition, but I just mean like on the mats in your school, and you're starting to find submissions and learn how to dominate, your peers or newer people. Then you start to pick up that side of it where it starts to feel like, okay, I get this now. This is why they say it's like comparable to like human chess, because you're setting traps, you're countering, you're doing strategy, and it's all real time, and there's real consequences, and it's there's nothing like it when it comes to that, as far as that can be done safely.
Yes. Yeah, because you can always just tap out.
You can always just tap out if you want to quit. The beauty of it.
Yeah. Oh goodness, I'll never forget the first time I got choked out in front of like 90 other guys, and it was not a fun feeling. I thought I could get my neck out of this guy's iron grip, but nope, it wasn't happening. I just woke up and they were shaking my ankles. So, what led you ultimately into being an instructor? Obviously, you're doing a lot of work for law enforcement as a defensive tactics instructor and a trainer for a lot of other people. So you're affecting this mass group of people. What led Sheepdog to you? Was that something that they just reached out to you? They're like, oh, I heard you're hot shit.
No, not even anything like that. And I will say, I'm still not a full-fledged adjunct for them, so I make no claims. I've taught for them multiple times now, but I think that I don't know when. At some point, they give you the official whatever. So I'm still in, I don't know what you would call it, probationary period or something. But so let me make that clear. Not knowing when this is going on. I've got another course coming up, and I think maybe after that I'm official. But in regards to how that came to be, it's nothing super cool. As actually a friend of mine saw an ad on Facebook saying that they're looking for instructors. They had some requirements. I met all the requirements, and I said, yeah, why not? And I responded to the job notice, and did a few interviews, and next thing I know, I was helping out. So it's a good fit. I mean, I love the company. I love what they do. I have a ton of fun doing it. And whenever I get to do something like that, it truly feels like stealing. It's like I'm getting paid to do something that I would just love to do. So nothing super cool other than, hey, they needed instructors because they are gaining in popularity, and they need people to help run the courses, and they want the most qualified people. And I just happen to fit the criteria. So
Have you done training outside of here and sheepdog before?
as far as
So in the military, were you in a leadership role where you had to teach people? Does it come naturally, or is it difficult?
I mean, I would say my first experiences in teaching anything skill based was in the Marine Corps. I went through what they called like a corporal's course after I got to the NCO level, and they had a very Marine Corps way of teaching where it was very scripted out about how to run a block of teaching. So that was my very first experience in teaching. I would say though that I really kind of grew into my own well after that, and that would in the police world. Some of the things we talked about is when I entered the profession. Obviously, I already had a martial arts background. I had already fought amateur mixed martial arts, had a lot of exposure to that, and then coming in and seeing the tactics that were taught at the time, and we're talking early 2000s. Right away, I went like, okay, well, this is not going to work. And recognize like, okay, I know fighting. I feel like even though that's not our goal, we're not trying to like knock, someone unconscious or strangle them. I still feel like I know how to control another human being. And this does not seem like an effective way. So identifying those deficiencies pretty early, I wanted to get involved with training. That was one of my first aspirations in getting into this career beyond learning how to be a police officer. And so I got involved in training what they call in the profession defensive tactics pretty early on. I think 2005 2006, somewhere in there is when I went through and took my first instructor course. And not too long after that, started doing a little bit of training within my department. I would say I went full scale 2010 2011, when it was full blown training the entire department. And like I said, we're one of the biggest departments in the state, so there's a lot of training to be had. So that's definitely where I really got going with teaching, was handling department training in defensive tactics. So
Sweet.
It's been over a decade at least. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to have your own approach to teaching. Maybe an instructor in the military, it was like something I was, hey, you're in charge of 250 people. Guess who's in charge of training too? You, motherfucker. Yeah. So I had to really reorient how I got things across to people, especially with the newer generation. If you're standing around and not in a high stress environment, there's going to be a lot of the whys. Why we have to do this? Yeah. It can be quite frustrating sometimes, but learning how to manage that frustration helped me get things across to them even better. Do you enjoy working with children and instructing them? Is this jiu-jitsu thing something that they can latch on to easily if they really like it?
I have people that run the kids programs here.
Okay.
I mean, I stepped in. I don't mind doing it. There's only one of me, and I got my hands full. I got my hands in too many things. I have, my boys in jiu-jitsu, and it's hard to say. There's so many kids that don't even understand what they're doing yet, but they're just here because, it's fun, or they like being around the other kids and they get to run around and, burn some energy.
Yeah.
But after you see when it starts, the ones that it does click with, they're into it, and you can see they're the next generation of killers coming up, and it's pretty cool to see. I do think, like I told my son, he's not really that into it, but he wants to do other things, and he's pretty young still, so it's a matter of I've kind of set the boundaries that, hey, well, you're going to do this at least for now until I feel that you can handle yourself in a physical altercation, without any weapons, because he wants to get into firearms. It's like, but you will master empty hand before we start looking at that. Now that we're still doing groundwork for that kind of stuff, and he just turned 9, so he's still pretty young, but he's been doing jiu-jitsu for a little while, and it just hasn't clicked with him yet. He doesn't really know what it's about, doesn't really understand what it's about, but I try to emphasize, like, hey, it's important for you to have these skills, and you don't see it right now because it's nothing that's in your line of view anytime soon. But you see it more and more. He's eventually going to go on to middle school and high school, and that's where kids are not nice. Things happen, and I think it's happening more and more these days. And then not only the aspects of that, but I told him, is like, as you grow up and you become an adult and you have your own family, or even what happens, when all my jiu-jitsu injuries catch up to me and I'm completely infirm, and you might need to care for me, and you're going to want these skills later in life, and it starts here. So just getting that through to him and understanding the importance, I think that he's kind of accepted, like, all right, even though he does class and he likes it, he just doesn't really know what it's about yet, right? And then the idea of going to jiu-jitsu, or playing video games, or going home and having a Nerf gun war, he'd choose those over it. But he's starting to understand, okay, this is something that just I have to do, and it's fine. And so the acceptance is at least there.
That's good. Yeah. I'm definitely having some struggles with my wife's brother as well.
Yeah.
I think that, well, he started with wrestling, and then he's getting frustrated with just wrestling. And I said, okay, well, let's tire you out more. Let's try new things. So I have a bunch of mats downstairs in my house, and anytime he wants to mess around and he'll walk by me, he'll shove me or punch me. And I said, okay, come on, let's go to the mats. And
to the mats.
Like, yes. Yeah. And he started getting excited for it. I said, you know what? I think I told his mom, I said, it might be a good idea to shove him in this jiu-jitsu thing I heard about. It's like folding human origami. It's kind of interesting. It's yoga with somebody else instead of you. So,
or what I hear, it's like folding laundry, only people are in the laundry.
Yes. Well, I'm super excited to definitely bring him by. So there's a whole bunch of things that I want to ask you personally now that I think they've heard enough. What can I do? Because obviously I'm going to be coming into this field fresh off an injury. I'm pretty much recovered all the way, but there's only a couple weird things. I can't move my arm like this. And for a long period of time, putting pressure on it. But other than that, I'm pretty much good. What things can help me kind of make up for that lost time? I was supposed to sign up Tuesday, but I got injured on Monday back in June. So what things should I start doing now? I have the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu videos, DVDs, but that's just DVDs. I have mats at home. I have a home gym. I have a gym membership. I have access to healthy dieting and stuff like that. What things can I do to improve?
Yeah, obviously, your fitness is paramount. Not to say that you have to be physical, because I hear that a lot, right? It's like, well, I got to get in shape before I start, and honestly, that's bullshit.
Mm-hmm. It's just another excuse not to do it.
It's another excuse. It's passing the buck. You're gonna get in shape. Just come in and do it, right? But as far as your injury is what's preventing you from starting. So I would say, to the best of your ability, you got to maintain that fitness, and you got to rehab that injury back to a point where you're healthy to train. So obviously with that, diet's super important. But as far as what you can be doing, I mean, there is plenty of knowledge out there. That's one thing that has really evolved that was not there when I started, is you have just a limitless resource with the internet and various websites that have instructional content. whatever you want is at, the touch of a finger now. And so you could explore that, but with, having, from what I understand, basically your experience is not in a formal capacity. It's been a lot of, training with friends and not under the direction or any sort of, curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that that's going to have a limited effect. Just not because without the context to put a lot of the stuff in, or really knowing how your body's going to move, or what it feels like training, that stuff, though not completely useless, is like it's going to have limited application. So as far as like what you could be doing until you're healthy to train, I recommend like solo drilling. I would even say, if the only thing really wrong is the shoulder injury, you could still do partner drilling. You could still actually come and take class. I'm going to break it to you. I've trained with plenty of injuries, and it's hard because it's hard not because you can't physically perform drills. What is hard is you want to do more.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to stop there.
Like,
all right, I think I can. You know what? I'm just going to tape my arm to my body, and I'm going to try and train. That's what's hard is not indulging in the most fun things. But as far as like drilling, if 75% of your body still works perfectly fine, it's just the shoulder thing. There's so much you could be practicing. But you'd have to train around the injury. But if you're just like, no, that's a no-go for me, I don't trust myself, or, I just really, 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 really want to heal. There's some great content out there. I know I just saw it yesterday, but the John Danaher solo drilling instructional on BJJ Fanatics, it's free. I always push that one out there. It's, sometimes his content is so detailed. Sometimes people have trouble following it because he's very monotone in his delivery, but the man's a wizard. And as far as like solo drilling goes, it knocks it out of the park. As far as that, at least, is developing body movement stuff, as well as like conditioning, muscle groups that's most pertinent for jiu-jitsu. So I would say that is at least physically getting you to do something that has relevance, and that's where you can watch instructionals all day long. You can watch the Gracie do this, a great program, but it's going to have a limited application to your actual learning. So
basically pull up and come get worked.
I'm not saying you gotta spar. In fact, I would say do not spar, but that's just one aspect of it. You can be coming and doing what you can. We got plenty of people that got bum knees. We got a guy right now, he's got a torn ACL, and he's been coming and doing what he can. He stays away from the takedowns. He stays away from things that are gonna, hurt him. But he's got a giant knee brace on, and he comes in, he does what he can. Until my neck went all the way out, I was still out here stupidly, because after I finally got an MRI, they're like, stop training immediately. You could be paralyzed. But I was still out here trying to do things. Not always the smartest thing. I'm not a doctor. Don't, take that for what it is. But like I said, I could list off all my injuries again, but if I'd stopped training every time I got hurt, I would never train. It's just part of it, and you just learn to manage it. But again, back to the point, I believe in solo drilling. I think that you can get some stuff done. The Danaher instructional is a great resource. There's other ones out there too. That one just happens to be free, and I feel like it's the best. So that'd be a great one. But also any of that stuff that you see that you just want to work through, slow speed with a partner that doesn't affect your shoulder, it's perfectly acceptable to do that too.
Okay. Well, you know what? Then that sounds like just enough for me. I'm gonna go ahead and drag. I'm gonna drag myself in here probably in the next 1 or 2 weeks. I'm super excited for that.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited to obviously learn from you. What should other people that aren't in this area look for in their professors of this? Their tacticians of of body folding.
Yeah, I think there are so many great instructors out there, and the ones that just aren't any good, I don't think they make it. It's one of these things where the popularity, um, if because of that, you can find a good school, and so you don't have to settle on a bad one. And I don't know any in this area as far as who I'd say like don't go there. I don't have one. I would recommend anybody in this area. And I've done lots of traveling, and I visited many jujitsu schools across this country, and I have yet to find one where I was like, whoa, lots of red flags here. Not to say they don't exist. I'm sure they do. What I'm trying to say though is go if you're looking to get into it. Uh, Almost everywhere is going to let you try a class, right? And in some places, multiple classes. So I say do that. Whatever area you're in, you find out. And these are the ones that are most convenient to me, because that's another thing. It's got to be convenient, or you're not going to do it. If you got to drive 2 hours to go train, unless you're just a diehard, because I'm going to say you won't do it, because I did it, so I know there's people that will. There are people that come from quite a ways away to train here, but I'm just saying, generally speaking, if it's not convenient for you, given most people's busy lifestyles, it's going to fall off real quick. So you got to make sure it's convenient. But the ones that are within reason, explore them. Go in, get a feel for the school, get a feel for the instructor, see what the vibe is like, see if it's a place that you want to, begin your journey. Um, and everybody's going to let you to have a turn, and you're probably going to find one that you prefer over the others, and then that's where you go. I think that's the best way to do it. I think we have plenty of people that do it that way. They come through here, and many come back and sign up with us. Others found somewhere else that suits their needs better, and that's okay. No harm. But that's probably the best way to do it, because it is an intimate thing, like we talked about, that camaraderie that comes with it is like basically these people become kind of like a second family. So if you're finding a place that's not feeling like that, it exists. You just maybe check the other place, and that's just it. The popularity has kind of led to an abundance of schools where you can be selective, and so I recommend that you do, and find what it is that you're looking for. And I think some people think they're looking for one thing, and then they find out that that's not really it. Like for instance, I'm nothing against it, but some people are, I'm 100%, I'm all self-defense. Well, when you come here, we don't offer like you talked about the Gracie Combatives DVD. We don't do that, and I have reasons for that. But it's no knock against anybody that wants to pursue that. It's just my belief. And even if you're talking about self-protection, I don't know that to me it almost becomes a little bit too kind of traditional martial artsy, where you're like, okay, XYZ. I don't believe in a very like technique heavy approach where it's like we're going to focus on this aspect that handles this specific scenario.
Not everything is cookie cutter, and
No.
in a fight, like every single fight I've been in, it's never been an easy situation, and you have to work through issues.
Oh yeah.
And you might have somebody try to punch you in the face or worse the whole time.
Because we'll have people that come in here and I'm looking for more of the self-defense thing, and they think we're not that. It's like, okay, my contention is always this, and I'll say this to anybody who's listening. It's like, and again, it's no knock on anybody. I think it's got to be enjoyable to you, right? And some people don't like, how will I say it? We're a little more abstract as far as like, I believe in being principle and concept based. We work on techniques, but more as scaffolding. Like we try and give you ideas on how to work certain systems, and we don't focus so heavy on, when you do this, your hand must go here and your leg must move in this manner. And I've just kind of learned that there's ways of circumventing skill acquisition, and it's not necessarily that approach. And some people don't. They want that. They want the dictation of a technique based approach, and so there's no harm in it. But what I would argue is, if you took one of my competition blue belts, right, that's competed, and you took a self-defense blue belt that's never actually competed, and you put them in a no rules situation. All right, guys, no rules here, fight to the death. I'm taking the competition blue belt 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's just because of what I know that it takes to actually step out and compete. And I'm not talking about like they've been versed in punch protection or edge weapons defense or any of that. Now, we're not talking about including weapons in this hypothetical, but if you took that blue belt that's competed and you put them against a self-defense blue belt that's never done it, and you said, no rules, guys, there you go. Self-defense at its high, or empty hand combat, I guess we'll call it, right? So no rules and go. I'm betting on that competition blue belt 10 out of 10 times.
I think I would too. There's so many different coaches and there's different approaches.
Yeah.
Ultimately is what I tell as many people as possible when they're wanting to start a self-defense journey. Everyone always asks me, oh, when can we go shooting? Can I go with you? I'm like, okay, well, have you done any are you dry firing? Do you have your own guns?
Yeah.
Do you practice? What are the 4 safety rules? Most people don't even know. It's everything from pistols to unarmed combatives to walking down the street and being assaulted by somebody and defending yourself in that moment without turning into a criminal act.
Yeah.
All these things, there's different ways to do it. And if you clip your own wings, you're never going to fly too well.
Yeah.
I like to usually stick with coaches who have a practical ideology supporting what their training is, how it's being implemented, where they're sharing it.
Now, mind you, we have what we call here casual Fridays, right? Where Friday here is I kind of make it up, I mean, I always have an idea of what I'm going to do, but there's times where we're here and everybody thinks they're just going to roll, and then as they're rolling, I come by and I start throwing down training knives. And suddenly but you'd be amazed at how, because they don't even understand that they know how to protect themselves until you give them that little, like, go ahead, this person's going to stab you with this knife, obviously it's rubber, but and then they're surprised at how well they handle it, and it's like, you didn't even know you already possessed skill sets that can manage the situation. Now, I won't recommend go get in a knife fight, but the skills are in there. It's just we changed the context. We added a variable. We've done it too where I'll hey, everybody grab a set of gloves, and they're like, what? The thing is here, like, if I tell them they're going to do that, nobody shows up. So I just spring it on them.
Come on, where's your sense of
I'm not going to say nobody shows up. There are people that like it, but in the moment they all love it, right? But if I told them ahead of time, they might get a little scared and not show up. So I'll spring it on them, and we have done combatives focused classes, and eventually there will be a course here where that it offers that. It's just a matter of some other things settling down for me, but because I know there's a demand for it, and then within that concealed carry and incorporating other elements and more of a well-rounded self-protection skill set. But like I said, between the Muay Thai and the Jiu-Jitsu, and the fact that I'll just spring it on them, and they know that and we do gi and we do no gi, and then I've been pleasantly surprised that most people, even when I spring it on them, can handle themselves, and it's super cool. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I love how people react under pressure. You can learn a lot about somebody by watching them get punched in the face or watching them trip and react to it. A lot of people just fall and roll.
And I'll tell you this, and I don't mean to knock anybody, and this was years ago, and I'm not sure it would go down the same way, but there was a student here that trained here for a while that also ran his own kind of self-defense system at his own place, and sprung the whole knife thing on. There's two people that day that I sprung. I hit it in my gi, and I came out, and he just kind of rolled over and let things happen. I was actually surprised. And I sprung it on another guy who was probably my number one training partner. I think he was a purple belt at the time, and never done any self-defense training, just jiu-jitsu. And he actually disarmed me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was like, wow, it was wild. Because I just got a new toy. This was, like I said, this was a long time ago, but it was a new training knife that had just come out at the time, and it had kind of a felt edge to it. And you could put this like paint on the felt so that it could mark like where you slashed or stabbed. And so I had put that on and just started slashing the one guy up. He had just marks all over his gi and all over his skin. The other guy, like, I think maybe I got like a nick or two, and then we're wrestling over the knife, and he actually took it from me.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
So it's not that says nothing really, other than it was surprising to me where somebody that had actually trained in edge weapons defense and thought we were just gonna, okay, we slap bump, we're gonna roll, and then I pulled a knife and he just did not react at all, or not, probably not the way that he would have hoped. And another guy did the same thing, and instead of just folding, he fought for the knife. So
the last knife incident I've gotten in real life was kind of uncomfortable. Thankfully, I was able to create distance and defend myself with the best of my abilities within the within the law, of course.
Yeah.
Within the law, don't want to incriminate myself. But if I didn't have that understanding of knives are supposed to stab you and you get up close. There's an extension of somebody's hand, and you don't want to get that hand touch you. And firearms are the opposite. Firearms are distance weapons, distance tools. So thankfully I understood that concept, but a lot of people don't understand how dangerous knives are. If you're in a knife fight, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
There in some capacity, whether it's the concrete tearing up your back or getting your head hit.
Any kind of physical street encounter, the potential to get hurt is very high, regardless of a weapon involved. So.
Over the worst case scenario, you mess up your new Jordans. I mean, worst thing ever. So,
or your computer, yeah, right.
Or your computer, yeah. This computer's all jacked up now. But I really do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule for this.
No problem.
It's great to know what I'm going to be walking into. I did a bunch of research to find out what I'm walking into, and I'm excited for every single challenge. I know there's going to be a lot of times where I'm like, what did I get myself into? But
just
it's
enjoy
going to be excited.
Like there's something to be said about having no expectations. You get to be an upper belt, or in my case, a black belt, and running a school, right? There's a lot expected of you. But when you're just starting out, there's no expectation. There's a freedom to that. So enjoy that part of it.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to be here. I'm going to hopefully bring a bunch of my friends over. I'd love to watch all them
in.
Get choked out and choke me out and choke each other out. And
nothing better
than seeing people grow together. So I do appreciate your time. Clutch, thank you so much. Where can people find you if they want to get in contact or ask you to come out to their gym?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. You can just search the name. I'm on Facebook. The website is kindredjj.com. That's got all the school info. It's got our schedule up there. Schedule is updated. We kind of work through a sign up system. So if you want to come in, want to check us out, do a trial class, that can all be done through the website. And any questions that you can always call or email, and we'll get you in. So that's probably the best way. If you're interested in training here, through the website, you can follow me and see what I got going on the social medias. And other than that, man, it's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Okay. Thanks everybody for listening. This has been another episode. If you want to get started, I can always recommend Jiu-Jitsu as a great place to start your self-defense journey. But it ultimately starts in the mind. You have to make a decision to do it. So please decide to do it. And thank you for listening. As always, special shout out to my wife this week for starting her self-defense journey. I'm very proud of her. Honey, you did a great job. So thank you all for listening. Much love. Peace.